think we're fine if people at home can hear. I'll just get that for me. Yeah, so thanks for coming out, everyone. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a little while. I think we started talking about this partway through last year. Yeah, I know it's going to go away. And yeah, so we're using the tech in the room in a slightly non-traditional way today. So we're based in the back of the room, and I'm sharing from my computer, but I think we've got the tech sorted out. But yeah, so the sort of the thought process for today. It's a seminar series. Oh, every time someone pops up, it's going to go like that. Sorry about it, not much we can do. But yeah, so it's a seminar series, but one of the seminar sessions that we had last year that was given by Stephen Garnett was driven more as a discussion. And so that's the thought process for this session today. So I've put a bunch of slides together. I'll PDF them and share them in case anybody wants them afterwards. So those of you who know me will know that I have no issue with talking for a straight hour without stopping. That's not the plan for today. So if there's a question at any stage in the room, just sing out. We can break out and sort of look into things and go off and explore options. If you're playing at home, we're going to try and drive it by the chat. We've got people monitoring that. Yeah, so that's sort of a bit of a thought process of today. And so just to sort of explain maybe the images that I've got up here, well, hang on, let's start with the text. I'm working on the assumption that you're here because you're at least interested to sort of see how AI might be able to help you in your research. So this is something that myself and a few others in Yellow 2 have been spending a lot of time on, probably also wasting a lot of time on. And so the hope for me was to sort of show you, as the title says here, a take on what works and what doesn't. Everything in the talk today is basically my opinion, and so you can, you know, the saying about opinions. I'm going to present it. It's up to you whether you take that on board or not, but we're going to sort of go through a tour of some things that may or may not be helpful for you. And then just to explain the thought process of the images across the top. So I'm working on the assumption that my experience is probably similar to lots of others, really busy looking for ways to do things more effectively. And so that's the thought process here. And so I started just by looking for an image, and I just sort of said AI research, and that's where I started. But it didn't quite capture what I was looking for, and so I wrote busy academic, and this is why we've got these two images over here. So for the young people in the room, these are books. The library's next door. But yeah, just about everything we're going to be doing today is talking about electronic approaches. So I think that's just about it I need for here. And so a while ago, probably didn't send this widely to everyone. Oh yeah, if you're watching the news. So I sent an email around to Real, and I just said, oh, what sort of things would you like to see? And so the sort of summary, well, the last 3 points were the main things that came up. And so I've sort of tried to put some sections together just so you can see some options of how you might have a go at some of these ways of using AI. But so to set the scene, I'm not a computer science expert, I'm not an AI expert. Some people might say I'm not even really an expert in my own discipline. But so this is just me trying to use these tools to make sort of parts of the process easier. And so the three sort of areas that I've got, after a really brief intro, I'm going to talk a little bit about finding papers and working with papers, because that was one of the things. Data analysis, which is something that this is basically the main use that I have for AI at the moment. And then just a little summary of some making your life easier type things. But so at any stage through this process, if you think of something, sing out. I don't want this to be just me talking for an hour, and I probably neither do you. So let's just jump in, and we'll just do this really super brief overview. Not what it is, but I guess what I'm going to say and what I'm not is more the point here. These are three really important points when talking about AI. So one of these is security and what you type into any of these chat boxes in the first place. And so something that I've seen people, a way to describe this is don't put anything into ChatGPT or whichever tool that you wouldn't say loudly walking down the corridor at work. We don't know how what you type into these things what it gets used for and who it goes to. So just be mindful of that. There's also points on ethics. So it's also what you're putting in, but also then to be thinking about how you use the outputs that you receive. And then that's related to this last point here, which is about being mindful of bias, but particularly accuracy, because anyone who's played with these tools will know, often the outputs that you get can be absolute garbage. And so I was I'm going to talk about a few different tools today, but ChatGPT is the one that I use the most. And so there's myself and a couple of others in Real that have talked about this a lot. So a few of us use the paid version of ChatGPT. It works out to about $30 a month. It changes how you can interact with it, but the free version is just fine. But so this description sort of applies to ChatGPT, but to any other variations on a theme. Twitter has one, X has one, which is stupid. There's a Google has one, everybody has one now. But so this is how I sort of explain this. It's like having an overly enthusiastic colleague who's generally intelligent, but a little bit clumsy, and maybe 80–90% correct. And so just for fun, because in the paid ChatGPT, you can generate images as well. And so I said, well, what does this look like? It's this guy. So talking about bias, note that it's a white man. And so there are things that you can do to improve the outputs that you get from ChatGPT and others. And you can Google this and there'll be countless websites that you can find for this. But the point here, yeah, you can do certain things in your prompts to improve. And so I just, for fun, I wanted to see what my image would look like next. So I've just said, look, I want two versions. One, that they're enthusiastic and clumsy, and the next, that with some guidance, they do better. So this is our starting point. This is our colleague who's a little bit clumsy, but really enthusiastic. And so here's just a discussion from, the website's there from I think this is one of the ChatGPT developers that's talking about what you can do to try and get better outputs. And so one of these, and so hopefully you'll see throughout my slides that I try and do this in all of the little examples that I have put together. But so detail, be really explicit about what you're looking for. This one might look a little bit weird, but I'll show you an example of that. So what you can do is say, as an expert in thing, tell me this, that, and the other. So that's a really useful one that you can try. Yeah, use delimiters. So often I might say, this is a piece of my code, enter, enter, enter. This is what I want you to do, just so that it can clearly see. Break complex tasks into smaller tasks. This is like talking to our person that needs very clear guidance. Examples. Now, I didn't end up coloring any of the text on this bottom one. I don't really use these tools for writing, but I understand that people do. But so that's a very specific one. Tell me how many words you want, 300 words, 200 words, whatever. And so I tried, this is a before and after, so that's our before person with the extra guidance. Supposedly it's this. So the question is this person more organized? Yeah, they are, because see, they've got all their pencils in the cup. I have no idea what that is. I got no idea what that is. So that was just a little bit of fun.
It's not the stain on his shirt anymore.
Oh. I don't know. So just another thing is that if you're interested in this sort of thing, you may be doing what I've done, which is going on Twitter, YouTube, Googling things, looking up advice. There's no shortage of experts. Some people actually are experts. Some people maybe just have lots to say, and that could count for the people at the front of the room as well. And so, yeah, my point here is that some of the advice you see from these people is really good, and some of it really isn't. And so just to sort of point out some of this, the effortless academic, how to write a paper in a weekend, don't find these sorts of comments very useful. And particularly some of the videos that I've seen from this guy, there are tools which I'm not going to put in here because I don't think you should use, that you can say, I want a paper on, and you just give it some advice and it just generates text, and it's garbage. Don't use it. Don't use it. But so by all means, have a look around. Some stuff that you get from these people and others is really helpful. But there's a point to make here that, anything that you don't pay for, you're the product. So they're trying to get you to click on things and to sell you things. And so it's just worth being mindful of that. So I'm about to switch gears and sort of really get into some applications. But if I throw out to people online and people in the room, does anyone have any sort of anything they want to add in? What are you using AI for? What are you interested to hear about? Just because I can sort of guide this session however it needs to go. I've got examples here. We're going to be jumping out and playing with some tools. Is there anything here?
So just wonder whether AI that makes videos or makes scripts or these, which we are academics, like writing is our expertise. So even not using AI, that's okay. But like if they want us to do some video work for social media, want us to do some and especially the video needs to have script or whatever, that just take too much time for us. So I just wonder whether AI can help on these things.
Yeah, so well, I don't know if I name names, but there's a person in the room who uses these tools to generate scripts a lot. So it's really good to frame things. I may name you person smiling back there or not, we'll see. On the video side of things, I have seen that there are tools that you can use to generate video, and I think this whole idea of deep fake and the like is going to keep going, and soon being able to determine what's real and what isn't is probably going to be really challenging. But I think at first it was massively expensive and hard to do, but I imagine that stuff's not far away. I mean, the other thing is that everything's moving so fast that, you know, it could be in the coming months that's really easy. But yeah, right now you can do video, but I think I saw something that people generating sort of movie quality videos, but in 10 seconds it costs some outrageous amount of money for them to do, but you can. Anything else? I saw there was a chat box pop up, but I'm not sure what it said, unless that's how it
Summarising papers.
Oh, summarising papers. I have a whole section on that. I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 different tools. And then, so the other thing is, if I don't say whether something's free or paid for, please just call me out, because I can let you know. In a lot of cases, I've sort of said, because I pay for 2 tools, and I'll show you which ones when we get there. But yeah, that's a really big one. Yeah, Andrew?
I just have another question about sourcing, the sources of information and stuff that you haven't really asked it to do that. I often say, where did you get that from?
Yeah, so I'll show you some approaches where you explicitly bake into the design where the information's coming from. Because yeah, again, in the early days of working with ChatGPT, everyone would talk about, you ask a question, you'd say, give me the name of 6 papers on topic X, and it'll give you names, you know, author names, name of the paper, the journal, the year, the everything, put it into Google and it doesn't exist. So it's getting better. But yeah, I'll show you some approaches where you say, search academic papers and tell me what you find. So I'll show you some of those because yeah, we really need to know. And then Hannah?
I have a question from Oscar online. He's wondering if you have any advice on the use of AI to do first reads of papers to extract key points or themes or unusual findings.
I will show you a thing. And I've been playing with this a little bit. So I've done this in a clumsy way. That's one of the pieces of software, one of the tools that I actually pay for. But I'll show you that when I get there. But yeah, we got lots on that. Oops. Cool. So the other thing I'm going to have to do is just keep an eye on time, just to make sure that we cover at least each of the 3 bits in some way. But like I said, the slides I mentioned.
Yeah, have you seen AI being used to make maps?
AI to make maps? Haven't, but I guess what that would be to help produce the data sets that then you put into, you know, a GIS package. And so I've been doing that. I'll also show you that, so I'll just say now, but so each of these various AI tools that's out there has something that it's good at. So ChatGPT actually integrates really well with Python. And then, yeah, the Twitter one, for some stupid reason, works well with Twitter, which is pointless. The Google one works with Google Scholar, which has some benefits. So there's every chance that the Python one could be good for that. But I'll sort of get to that in more detail later. But the paid version of ChatGPT now can write Python code, run Python code, and give you the output, but it only has access to certain libraries. And so some of the sort of spatial ones it doesn't, but it can help you write the code to do it yourself. So, yeah.
And likewise for R, it's great for RGIS, but it can't run it. So Dylan mentioned that ChatGPT can run Python scripts. It can't run R scripts.
Yeah, and so...
But it can definitely help you create.
And I think the key point on this is that, and I've got this somewhere in these slides, is that I think that these tools are really great for trying to extend your capabilities, make it so you can do things that you couldn't before, rather than necessarily replacing, you know, make me a map on this. It probably won't be so great at, compared to, I have these data sets and I want to map it this way in this tool. That's definitely an avenue that you can go down. Yeah, okay, so I just thought to talk a little bit about finding papers, summarising papers, and sort of how to do this. And so I've prefaced this that I'm not that plugged into doing this yet, but there looks like some really nice opportunities here. And so, yeah, I still mainly just use Scopus. So, but I thought I'd start with just a slightly extended version of this here. And so this is one where working with Scopus, ChatGPT, and it's almost embarrassing to say, but I've been manually doing my references for years, and I've really just jumped back into doing a reference managing system. So I've been using Zotero for probably the last year or so. So yeah, so this is basically something you can try. You don't have to do this, but this is something I've been playing around with recently. So it's basically the steps here. That one thing that might be really useful with ChatGPT is to chat with it about the types of search terms that you can use to find the papers that you're looking for. If you're good at this stuff, you can just do it yourself. But so something that I've been doing a lot recently, which I think is quite cool, is doing a search in Scopus, grabbing a big data dump into a spreadsheet, and then sort of sifting through that afterwards. So I'll skip over these last two bits here, but there's a really nice thing that you can do where you can grab text and you can say, write this as a bibtex, which is a file format for LaTeX for nerds that use that. But then you can plug that straight into your reference managing software and get a whole bunch of papers into your reference management system really easily. So I'll do this just really quickly. I can't see nothing in the way. But so, for example, if I was going to do a search now, I'm a groundwater person, so I'm just going to go groundwater and climate change. So now this will come there is, but so there's 10,000 papers. I could go through and try and refine my search and do various things, but let's just say that I was happy with that. I can come in here and I can go export to CSV. And usually this is probably where I would go. So this is going to be a ginormous spreadsheet. And actually, when you try and get more than 2,000, it has issues. But in theory, at least, I can export all of those papers. I get the title, the authors, the year, the journal, the abstract, and all the papers they reference. And I get that in a giant spreadsheet that I can go sift through. So for example, if I'm doing a literature review, I can just put that into Excel and I can just use the filter function. I can look through the abstract for papers that talk about a certain topic, for example. So that's not AI at all. That's just an approach for finding papers for now. But so yeah, the moral of the story is I could, if I wanted, start integrating with that spreadsheet to get an AI tool to look through my papers, but I'd rather do this myself. But so this is another tool, and so this is one that I use, and I think I say freemium, so it's free, you can pay, and it's apparently better, but I don't. And so the way that people describe this is it's like mixing ChatGPT with Google Scholar. So you can type a question and then you sort of work through this process and it finds you real papers with hyperlinks that then you can go get. And so just an example here. So you do have to sign up, but other than that, it's free. So sorry if that's a bit small, but yeah, in this process, you have a search box, but this is where, Andrew, the point is that you say, where do you want the resource to, where do you want to be searching? And you can say, search academic papers, please, not YouTube or any of this other nonsense. And I can't remember, there's this Copilot option, which basically will help you refine the outputs of your search if you want. So if I just do this really quick, again, that thing's in my way. Oh, you can't see, so I'm just talking to myself. So here's this perplexity, and I can say something like, are there studies on the impact of, I'll just keep doing my variation thing, climate change on groundwater in Australia. I want to say, hey, search academic papers. Apparently, I can probably provide some extra context. I've never done it. I'm going to tick this Copilot option and just run. So it's searching. It may ask me a question. No, in this case, it doesn't. All right. So the output here is, these are the first few papers that it's suggested. It gives me a little summary of each one, and then eventually it's going to tell me which paper it's drawing on to sort of make that comment. So it's kind of nice. It's a variation on a theme from sort of going really broad in scope, as some targeted questions. The papers aren't always great in my experience. They might be in weird, obscure journals, but if nothing else, this is another way if you want to sort of kickstart your process or get out of the loop that you're in. This is a way that you can find some other stuff.
So this answer actually is a summary of those papers.
Yes, yeah. So it's in this case, it's categorized things into themes. So it's talking about uncertainty, global perspectives, and soil and groundwater salinity. And so yeah, there's links to each paper, or I can just get all of them. I can click on any one of these, goes to a stupid thing first, and then I can go to the actual publisher. And so I've got access to that paper now just from asking some questions. So I think that's kind of cool. And so I have sort of had to play around with that a little bit just to see if there are papers that I haven't been considering that maybe I could. But yeah, so free and quite helpful. And there's my cooked answer. So yeah, real papers, how accurate summaries, I saw that. And the government reports, not sure, I don't think so. But yeah, so I guess the key point on the accuracy is you should always check yourself. So this is always step one. This is, hey, it's recommended me this paper. I'm always going to go and check it. So I probably haven't gone back to look at the exact summary and to see if the paper says exactly what the summary says. For me, this is just a way of finding things, and then I make the call on if I think it's going to be helpful or not. So here's another one. Again, this is another sort of variation on a theme, Research Rabbit. I think, well, I haven't paid for this one, so you must be able to use it for free. And so in this example, you basically start with a paper. So you upload a paper that's of interest, and then it goes and searches papers that have cited it, papers in the reference, and papers that have similar topics. And so I'll do this really quickly because I've got a sort of a canned example. I just typed my own name in. So I think what I had done is I put 3 or 4 or 5 of my papers and then sort of went through this process. And it gives me these options on the side, so I can find a network of similar papers, and it shows me how they're all connected. So I can sort of go into any one of these. I've got the PDF. I can see which papers they're either related to or which papers they're citing. And so this is a way, oh, that's a classic. This is a way that you can get in and just see how everything plugs together, and it's another way that you can explore papers that you might not have thought to look for. So yeah, this is very self-serving. This was me typing in my own name, but you can start with a paper that you're, in a field that you're working in, and sort of use that as the starting point. So again, I'm writing for the sake of just showing you a bunch of things, but I guess my overall advice, if I don't say this later, is don't waste too much time exploring these tools. Find one that you think is useful and perhaps just use it. Yes.
Hey, Dylan, have you found or do these ones other papers that aren't in English but generate your outputs in English?
That's a good question, and I don't know, and it might come back to that bias point where I think I did a training course about doing literature reviews, and this is one of these classic, I got sucked in and paid these people money to do their course, but they did, because one of the guys was Iranian, and he did make the point that a lot of these models are starting to work better with other languages, but they're still heavily biased towards English. I mean, with the Scopus search, you can get papers that are published in other languages, and in my experience, you usually get a title and an abstract and keywords that are all in English, but then otherwise the paper can be in whichever language it's in. So there are ways to sort of capture those, and that's one.
The chat GPT would be pretty good at translating paper.
I mean, when it's pulling to you,
but I just mean if
actually do that automatically.
Bring
it into your summary.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So there's probably a few things you could do. You could grab chunks of paragraphs of text and put it into Google Translate. It usually does okay. Yeah, there's a classic story from those of you that used to watch Isaac.
Just those translations are absolutely terrible.
If you need to get in the ballpark, yes, but yeah, that's true.
It's rubbish.
It's good at some language.
Yeah, there you go.
Very good.
Summaries.
Yeah, but yeah, the direct translation, yeah. Awful. Yeah, Hannah?
Dylan, could you speak about litmaps as a research rabbit alternative? Bosco has found litmaps easier to use and interpret.
I can't, but what I can do is did I put it in my list? There is a bunch of these. So what I might do is add a few other things to here. But what I was going to do is go, hey, here's 4 or 5, and there's Litmap, SciSpace, all of these others. And I was just going to cover a couple. Yeah, Osman?
Just to answer Sunil's question, there's those GPTs that is available on ChatGPT now, right? There's one called Auto Expert Academic. When you upload a paper, and it gives you like a summary, what this paper is about, the questions, the hypotheses, and everything. I just tested that. I uploaded a paper in Portuguese, and the output's on English.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, you can probably translate and give you like an overview of that paper in another language, in English.
Yeah, no, I've been able to do that for a long time, so that's not new. I'm asking about whether a tool can do it as part of that process and bring that to you in the output.
And so the answer is then yes, but in that case, that's the paid version of ChatGPT.
Yes.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I maybe this is as logical a time as ever to do it. So the main differences between paying for and not paying for ChatGPT now are the free version is all text-based. So you just have to type into the box whatever you want, copy and paste something from somewhere and sort of put it in there. In the paid version, you can upload a PDF, you can upload a spreadsheet, and then you can ask it to work with it. And so these GPTs that Osmar's talking about, so you can create your own little tool. And so there are custom ones for various tasks. And so in that case, it's load this, summarize it, and then with the intermediate step of also translate it into English in the process. So can't remember if I said already or not, but yeah, I did. So it's $30 a month is the charge. And so there are relatively new approaches now where you can get a seat license. So like you can get a 3-seat license, but there's no, it doesn't scale nicely. It's like 1 license, $30, 2 licenses, $60, and so on and so on. And so there is a corporate commercial license too, but I think they were very secretive on what the pricing is for that.
Right.
Just wonder for paid GPT, if it uses the research tool, does the university have any specific procedure if we want you to go from the project?
No,
And it has to go through IT guys, or we can pay through the credit card?
I'm paying on my credit card. Yes, so are others.
I imagine the university doesn't have a lot of money to pay for people who use these tools at the moment. But I mean, they should potentially be looking into getting large-scale licenses once they decide to create really useful tools. There's so many tools.
There are so many tools, and that's why I've picked 2, and that's pretty much, or 2 that I pay for. And I'll show you the other one. I think it might even be next. Oh no, so this variation of a theme. So the other thing is, this is the Google equivalent of ChatGPT. Just like ChatGPT, there's free and paid for versions. And I think this is my little reminder to myself going to come up. No, or maybe next. So there's another guy that wasn't sort of on my list of Twitter people that I follow, and he made a post the other day that said, "Oh, this is really great. Google Gemini links with Google Scholar. How amazing. I did this search." And so I did it and it worked. Did it again. It doesn't. But so what I've got here is I'm telling us a few things. I'm saying I need to do a literature search. So I'm flagging, go to Google Scholar and do it, please. Again, I'm doing climate change, groundwater. I've got more detail here, tropical environments. And the thing was provide summaries of the top 10 citing papers. So the first time I went through this, it said, hey, this paper's, 1,000 citations. Here's a summary, that paper. And it all worked really nicely. This time it didn't work at all. So that's one of the frustrating things is that sometimes as a scientist, a lot of these approaches are not reproducible and it drives me nuts. So what I got in this case was I can't directly access citation counts due to blah, 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 but here's a summary of, papers that somehow I had access to. And again, I could link to those to check that they're real. Again, in this original post that I saw, they talk about the sort of Google button that's at the bottom. Seems a bit weird, but after Google gives you a summary, you can click the Google button and it checks the accuracy of it. And so in this original example, and it'll give you green if it's fully verified, yellow if it suggests that you should look further. And this guy is in IT and making games. So he said he picked a topic that he knew really well. He did the search. he checked it and he said everything was really accurate as far as he was concerned. But so just something for you to explore if it's in your interest. This is the one that I pay for, and so full disclosure, this was probably just a bit of a brain fart for me to do this, but so this tool Sci Summary is really powerful, and it's one of these ones that I got sucked in. They said, oh, we have a monthly subscription fee, or if you pay $300, you just have it forever. And I don't know what you're like with doing your credit cards each month, but I hate it. And so I went, you know what, I'm just going to pay $300 and done with it. And so freemium, it's free, or I've got the paid version. I don't know what the differences are. I think it's the volume of material that you can put through the thing. But yeah, so again, you set up an account, you upload a paper, and then you say what you want. And so I think I've got, yeah, just a cooked example here, just so you can see what you get. But so I get to say, all right, what do I want to summarize? I can get a summary for each section overall. What are the key points? Can you simplify this? And then something that might be worth checking for some people is, from this paper, do they mention future opportunities, knowledge gaps, etc.? And I request a summary. So I think, let's just see if I've got one here. Okay. Just so you see the sorts of, so in this case, I said, what's the future opportunities based on this paper? And so I haven't read this in detail, so I can't give you any comments on how good it is. But it goes through, reasonably systematically, all these different opportunities that it somehow spins out from this paper. But I think the thing for me is that often with a literature review, you might just be wanting to say what's been done, what's been flagged as a future opportunity, and this is a really quick way to sort of pull that out of papers. I did once upon a time have a ChatGPT's prompt that was working for this, where I could feed in a paper and say summarize this and pull out this information, and it worked really well for about 6 papers, and then it just started getting a bit lazy and producing very similar stuff for every paper, and I gave up.
Does that spark the information of the paper together, or just the paper by paper?
So in my case, I was doing it case by case. Something that I tried was I wrote a paper about one of my former bosses, one of these career papers, and you know who that is, Bill. And so I tried it just to see. So I had that Scopus data dump, and I just said, I'm writing a paper about person X. Here's every paper they've ever written. Can you summarize everything that was about geochemistry, just to see what it said? And it was garbage, but it did try and pull multiple papers together in that process. But yeah, this is a one-off.
That's one that you can try to upload another language paper, see if that puts in.
Right. So, I mean, the other thing is I might do is just play with some of these afterwards, and then if anyone's interested, find a way to let you know how I go.
So,
yeah.
Forgive my smart ass manner, but papers have these things called abstracts as well.
True.
So I can see the utility of that if you've got specific things you want to pull out for a literature review. Have you found that just for scanning the literature, you can get more useful information out of this approach rather than just reading the abstract that's already there? Like, that's not actually the facetious question. Interesting.
No, it's a good question. So yeah, you're right. The start of every paper has an abstract, and it tells you what's in it, and what they found, and why, and all of that. So one of the things that is helpful, I think, is that sometimes you might want a snapshot from as many papers as you can see. And so you can say, write me a 50-word summary of this, or pull out the key message from this. You still, I mean, the thing is that I don't think these tools are going to replace us anytime soon, in the fact that you still have to look at the output, decide if it's useful or not, and then how you're going to work with it. You can try and take yourself out of the loop, but that's a really silly thing to do. So I think with a lot of these things, it just comes down to your imagination and how you can kind of apply them. But yeah, so totally valid point that yes, there is already a summary in every paper, and that Scopus approach is a really nice way to get a bunch of them. But these are ways to sort of pull out touch. So you might say, I only want to see the methods in that case with the Sci space, and it'll summarize the exact methods that we use. So you might want to say, I'm looking for what methods these 50 papers have used, and you can get that information. So there is ways for it to be useful. So I think in the interest of time, I might just jump on. And so this is now, I just wanted to talk a little bit about data analysis. But yeah, Hannah?
There's a question from Jyoti. She's wondering if these tools could be merged into an academic institution libraries?
I have to take that on notice and go to the library. Yeah, I don't know. I think it still looks like it's up to everyone to work out how to utilize these tools for their work. And each of the tools talks to a different resource. So there's horses for courses, I guess, is the answer for that one. But sorry, I wanted to cover this a little bit. Oh, shameless plug, what an awful person. So I use ChatGPT for coding a lot, and I think it's awesome. And so classic maybe of how fast everything's moving, and then so as a result, how silly you can look within a month or two of doing something. So the paid ChatGPT version, it had this thing called forget what it was originally called. They changed its name to this advanced data analysis plugin, and then they've just dropped all of those, and it's just part of what you do now. So no one's ever going to cite this paper. Yeah, I actually think that ChatGPT is awesome for learning to code, to extend what you can do with code, to speed up what you can do to analyze your data. So this is where I spend nearly all of my time working with AI. I've got the point here. I think this is a general rule, and you hear me keep saying this. If you're looking for AI to replace you, you're kind of thinking about things the wrong way. You can learn, you can extend what you can do from using these tools, and I think that's the best way to sort of view this. And so this is just a super simple workflow that you can try. You can say, all right, give it some details of what you want to do. And so this might be some information about your research question. You might say, I have a spreadsheet that's structured this way. And you basically ask it for code to help you interpret the data. Like I said, if you pay for ChatGPT, it can be running this code for you in the background. As a scientist, that's incredibly unsatisfying because you don't see it. And then if you can come back another day and run again and it's not reproducible, really silly. So I always say, give me the code. I want to run it on my system. And then you've got one of two things will happen. It's either going to work, you should check it to make sure it works, and happy days. But if it doesn't, what you can do, particularly, so Python's horrible. I don't know what other languages are like. The error messages you get are incomprehensible garbage half the time. But you can paste that back into ChatGPT and say, I ran the code, I've got this error, can you please help suggest errors to fix it? And it'll say things like, replace this line with that, or the error appears to be this, replace this line with this line. And so you can sort of do this circular motion, or you can sit down and try and work out what's going on if you know what you're doing. But that's an approach that I've used a lot. And I think I've just got a couple of examples in here. Variation on a theme, but so in that paper that we wrote, we tried a few things. And so this is something that had been driving me nuts for ages. There was a really nice function in R. I had very, very base understanding of R. I wanted a Python version. I tried about 3 times to convert it over. I just couldn't do it. So I just said, this is a function in R. Please write this in Python. I went first go and it was awesome. And so this was, you don't need to know the context. It's a base flow separation for hydrology. And it worked really great. And so I even said, do the analysis, make this graph, and then tinkered until I was happy. The other example that we had, MATLAB is, I think, the bane of many people's existence because it's expensive and not everyone has the funding to pay for it. And so again, this is just another example. This was a data scraping example that was written in MATLAB. So we'll take this MATLAB code, write it into Python for us, please. And it gets climate data from the US and it presents it in a nice way and then made a plot for us. So that was really cool. So I guess you don't have to read these, but this is just me being super detailed. So I've just got some examples and a lot of this is maybe more so you can look at it afterwards. Hannah?
Sarah would like to ask a basic coding question. She's wondering, could ChatGPT be used for writing code for Google Earth Engine analyses?
I'm going to say yes. I'm not an expert. Yeah, there you go. Yes. Hard yes from Andrew. So yeah. Is that
we do the same as you just described. Ask for some code, run it, you get an error, and you ask it to accept the error, and it comes back with lots of suggestions, and it's fantastic.
Is it Java or Python or either?
JavaScript.
JavaScript, sorry. Yeah, so yes, and so this is sort of a template approach that you can use. It works in whatever language you like. I'm always going to say Python because that's what I've been doing. But so just a quick example, in this case here, I had a massive spreadsheet that I'd got from Scopus. I wanted to to pull out certain things, produce a really simplified spreadsheet for me. So you don't have to read it. I'm just saying, here's the context. here's exactly what I'm asking for, and here was just an example. I've already got this bit, can you help me write the next bit? It spat out some code, copy, paste, run, and it got me exactly what I was looking for. So I already had this bit, and it managed to do this bit as well. So I'm writing a paper about groundwater surface water interactions, which is just such an incredible field, you should all get into it. But yeah, I wanted to know what papers are coming out and what do the citation patterns look like, and I got that really easily. The point here is I could sit down and write this. It would take, I've been generous to myself and said 1 hour. It would take me time. This took a few minutes, and all I had to do was check to make sure the output worked as it looked like it did, and it did in this case. Hannah?
And Bonnie would like to clarify, is this only possible in the paid version of ChatGPT?
So no. So the difference between the two in this case would be, let's just see. So this is kind of like a free approach. So I could have said, here's my spreadsheet, read the titles and write me the code. Instead, I've just said here, look for the column document type, year, and cited by. So this would work in the free version. In the paid one, I could actually give it my spreadsheet if I wanted. So yeah, the free version is really powerful, and you can do lots with it still. Yeah, got code, got output, happy days. This is a variation on a theme. This is where I'm saying, hey, here's my spreadsheet, and it's ginormous. Load it. What have I said here? I have lots of files like this, and I want you to join them all together. Help me write the code to do it. Yeah, and I've said this already, that one option is this version could run that code for me, but that's really silly. I would much rather see what it's doing and be able to edit. Yeah?
Have you just had a thought, if you've got sensitive data sets that you're dragging onto the internet and you're not sure where the data is going or being used, have you encountered any issues with that, or is there any kind of data licensing stuff that ChatGPT has?
No, but I guess my point is sort of wrapped up here, that if I don't think there's a security issue, this is just a data dump from Scopus, so I can just put that on the internet, it's fine. If I was concerned at all, I would do that previous version, say, I've got these headings, bang, bang, bang. Don't give it the data, it doesn't need to see it. What I want is this, this, and this. Because you just don't know where that data is going. So I wouldn't, I think is my advice. But yeah, that's sort of a simple workaround. You can just give it enough context without giving away what you don't need to give it.
And I think when you've signed up for ChatGPT, you've given them the right sort of data that you upload for their training.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're the product. If you're not paying for it, you're the product.
But in one of the paid ones,
yes,
in the GPTs, if you set up a little analysis GPT, it keeps all the data private, so it won't use it for training.
Yes.
Is there offline version of such tools? Then you don't need really worry about that data.
So I mean, we need the IT people here. So I mean, I know Nirmala has a role.
Needed to run this stuff. It's enormous. It's offline. It's not going to run on your PC in a million years. So.
Okay. Just a quick tip about this thing that I found very useful for me. Some papers just put these ugly equations in the methods, right? So you can take a screenshot of that equation, upload ChatGPT, and say, I need to the R code for this equation. We've simulated the data. They created the data, they simulated, you just change for your data later, and the code for that specific equation there. So I mean, for the non-mathematically gifted people like me, that is very handy.
Yeah, so I've stolen some of your ideas, Osmar. So sorry, I was going to say I was going to credit you when I get to that part. But so I've done that as well, and it's awesome. But again, it's one of these cases where I've done it and I've seen the most gnarly equations, and it just says, here's the process to do this. And it, like, I ran it, I didn't fully follow, but it's like, look, that looks like it's working reasonably well. But I've since done it, and it says, oh, I can't run the OCR, the optical character recognition, to recognize this thing. So I know people talk about ChatGPT being lazy recently, and no one knows why. But yeah, I've done it and it works. It's very cool.
There's a specific GPT called Max. That's very
okay. Well, I need to talk to you more then.
Wealth breeds laziness. So
Be nice. Maybe you haven't been nice to it. Like
I say please. I say please all the time. I'm very worried about Terminator happening. So just some quick rapid fire ideas just to throw out there for people. I'm learning how to use Thing. How do I do thing. So I did, I think I've even got it here. I did ArcGIS in my undergrad and then didn't use it for about 10 years. And now I'm having to use it again. I'm using this, how do I do this? And it gives you step-by-step instructions. They're not always right. It might be a different version of the software that it's looking through, but massively helpful to learn rapidly how to do things that you otherwise couldn't do. So that one's really cool. Yeah, I'm doing this thing in Python. Pandas is the library that works with spreadsheets, and it's equal parts powerful and a complete pain to use. How do I do this thing and then output something? And so I can just ask that. It'll give me a little snippet of code to show me how it works, and I can go, oh, great, that's how you do that. And I can go to my own script and do what I need to do. It's not just code. Excel is another one. I've found this to be really cool. So I think I've got an example in a minute, but so I think you're only limited by your imagination. I've got this thing that I need to do. This is where the data is. Write me a function to do that calculation. So that one's really cool. Yeah, here's a work example. All right, I have this thing, this data in F, it starts in row 2. I need to do this. Oh, I need to split out how many affiliations are here. There's a semicolon between affiliations. If there's no semicolon, the answer is 1. If there's 1 semicolon, the answer is 2, and so on. And then come up with this approach where it calculates the length of that cell. It removes the semicolons and it calculates it again, calculates the difference at 1. I would never have thought of that. And so bang, straight away I've got my function and off I go and I'm doing my analysis. So you're only, I think, limited by your imagination most of the time.
I think the whole part actually is the description you wrote here, which is
give it the
not
context.
easy either.
But give it a play. I think that one's really cool because it's not all just snobby programmer types. That you could do lots of really great stuff in Excel too. What have I got there? Yeah. I didn't include it in the screenshot, but it explains the process. This is how this function works. This is how this function works. By applying it this way, this is how you can do it. So if you take the time to read it, you then have that skill in your skill set forevermore. What else we got? So this is you, Osmar. I have data that looks like this. You can either be talking about, whether it's normally distributed or not, what the headings are, what you're going to do with it. I need to do thing, suggest the statistical approaches that I can use to analyze this data, list the pros and cons of each approach in a table. And so I've gone through this a few times as a non-statistician and a non-machine learning person, and it will say things like, random forest is good at this, but the drawbacks are that. Alternatively, you might use this thing, but it's viewed as a bit of a black box, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can look through these options and then go, well, actually, that second one looks good. Show me how to do it. And then you can get at least a skeleton that then you have to get in and complete. But I found that to be really cool. And I think, Osmar, you've done that quite a lot. Is that right?
You don't need to write that first sentence. You can upload your spreadsheet now.
Well, we can if we pay. But otherwise, that's the just to type it in. That's something that you can do. Again, this is stealing from you, Osmar. Here's my code or a description of my code or of my analysis. I'm trying to use it to do whatever. What do I need to mention in my methods? And it can give you that sort of, these are the things that you would need to include in your method section. You write it, but it's sort of, sometimes you might go, oh, I didn't think that would be relevant, or it gets you thinking outside the box a little bit. So we've sort of been going for, yeah, go, Rash.
No, just 4 more minutes.
Yeah, okay, 4 minutes, done. All right, let's push on. I'll just do this last one, just because I think there's some fun stuff in here. So I sort of flagged this earlier. I saw this, and I can't believe this works. It does. So if you are a Zotero user, if you use EndNote or Mendeley or any of these others, I assume that you have a file format you can just read in, so this can be used anywhere. Highlight the references that you want, paste into ChatGPT and say, write this as a .bib file, and then I can just import it into Zotero. Boom, I've got all of those references straight in there, and it took me 30 seconds. I use the plugin for Google Chrome, and I have to go through each one and grab them. 30 seconds, it's very cool. I have to read them to make sure I want to cite them. Emails, completely cooked up example for the record, but sometimes you might have an email that you need to write. It's a little bit tricky. And so you can use ChatGPT to suggest alternative ways to do it. So yeah, read that at your leisure. Do better. Now, this is waffly and gross, but it might be a good start for you to go, oh, okay, maybe calling Jeff a piece of work is not the best thing that I could be doing here. I would go through that and I would sort of edit it out to be more like what I want. Or you can give it examples of your writing and then say, using my style, can you convert this to something that's a little bit more business appropriate? Forget what the context of this is. Okay, yeah. So rephrasing text. English is a first language. I don't speak any other languages. So, you know, this comment about don't use it to rephrase is I'm not going to make it. Obviously, you can do this to go, I'm trying to say this. Can you help me with my phrasing? Now, anyone can do that for the record. And yeah, so you can say, hey, here's some examples of my writing. So when you do this, can you please sort of try and match my style? But if you do this, you just have to be really careful. Every journal is going to have their own guidelines. So Journal of Hydrology, where I publish, says that if you do that sort of thing, you have to say so. The last thing you want to do is publish a paper and then years later get called out because a new AI searching algorithm has come out and they find that you've been using it, haven't said so. So be honest. There's no shame in it unless you're trying to get it to write your whole paper or write a whole section. Help me with this, absolutely fine, but yeah, be mindful of what you have to say about it. I flagged this way back at the start, so just something that you can try. Respond as an expert in thing. Then you give it the context and ask for a result. It completely changes the way that it responds. And so just something that you can play around with. So yeah, help me structure out what my introduction should look like in this case. For learning, I'm trying to learn this thing. Now you can also do this in all these explain paper tools. You can say explain, and you can choose a sort of level of complexity. Explain it to me more simply because I just don't get it. So I've played around with this a little bit and not a lot, but I've seen a lot of people say that this is helpful.
Fantastic.
There we go. We've got.
If you say explain it to a 5-year-old or something, it's really, really interesting to just grab an abstract of any paper and say, write this for a 5-year-old. And it's just like, oh, yeah. Fantastic. You really should try it. It gives you a good understanding of what it is. Yeah.
So there you go, both hands. So I think that's it. So all I want to do is just finish on one thing and I'll finish with 2 minutes to spare. And I've got my animations out of order, so I'll just put them both up. Massively helpful, massively helpful. As a late adopter of all things, I was very late getting a phone. My wife set up my Facebook account for me. Now I don't use it. So I'm late to pick things up, but this was one that I felt is important to get on the front foot on. So yeah, extend what you can do, automate boring stuff, speed up things that take ages, discuss ideas. You know, ideally you do this with your co-authors, but they're not around or it might be late at night or whatever it is. These are all things that I think are really helpful. Write my paper, write this section, you know, don't do it. You're going to get caught out. And then the other one is always check the output. So eventually they're talking about these tools replacing us, but right now it's replacing part of what you do. And then as the expert, it's your job to make sure the output's useful. So that's all I had. Thanks. Hopefully that was at least partially helpful. All right.
Dylan, have you played around with Site?
I have. Was it Tegan? Was that the one that you were using?
I was using it for marking student assignments to check for misrepresentation. So checking that if what they actually included as a citation was related to the fact of the statement of the program.
Yeah, so.
But again, I think you need to do, I did a trial of the paid version, and the capability was much greater with the paid version.
Yeah, I actually paid just for testing, and I mean it's kind of mixed feelings about that. It's sometimes very useful. Sometimes for those who doesn't know that it's a AI tool. When you write a text, you put a paragraph there, and they provide the citations for that sentences you wrote. Sometimes you don't know. I know this is true, but I don't know which paper I read that. And they kind of find that for you.
Oh.
But I mean sometimes. Like I said, sometimes some garbage can use. You need to double check that. But sometimes it works very well.
That's very cool. I just deleted a sentence out of my paper because someone said you need to find a reference for that statement. I couldn't find one, so I just deleted it. But yeah, I guess the thing is, I mean, maybe talk to people. There are things that are really helpful, but yeah, I spent ages at first playing with all of these things, and I realized, oh, this is just a massive waste of time. If I have 1 or 2 tools that works, I think that's my recommendation, but otherwise chat to people and see what works. But I mean, it's not going away, and it feels like there's enough things out there that are useful. It's up to you whether you do it or not, but that sort of was my take on a handful of those tools.
I wonder if we should maintain a spreadsheet of all these different.
I tried.
components and people can
Yeah.
put in comments about what
So-
they found.
I set that up in Real at least. So there is a folder on the Real share drive, but I don't think I have access to update it. So, but maybe we should touch base with that and go, hey, you know, here's Brett's top 3, here's whoever's top 3, and maybe just sort of put those ideas out there. Because
Most students have access to the real shared drive either.
that's also true. There we go. So we need to find a better way to do it.
So, sorry for interrupting,
Yeah, sorry.
but we keep the protocol. We can all go to Yellow 2 for the real morning tea and extend our discussions. Thanks a lot, Dylan. That was very inspiring. And I also would like to ask for more volunteers for the real seminar. You know, I think this worked really well today with Dylan. And yeah, drop a message and let's continue there. If you guys wanna help, we like the black chairs, yeah, they're in the back. We can just pile them. And if you want to network here, just do it in front of the building because we have to rearrange the room and give it back to the people here. All right, thanks a lot. That was great.
Thanks. Very fun.
No, really.
I'm having a chat with Hannah about how to best do that, because she said, tell everyone that you know you're. I don't want to do that. I'm going to put the PDF on the invite. So, hey, everyone,
Yeah.
you want it, it's just on the invite. So we're working on that. Or, like that.
But I'll wait a bit because people have to go away. But thanks for
Is that right?
yeah, it's like a youth.